Hello, 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 and welcome to this wonderful launch of Who's Loving You, presented by Everyman Cinemas and Dark Matter, with special thanks to Pages of Hackney, our bookseller partner, and Trapeze Books and Ryan Books. So Who's Loving You? Stories by women of color is out today, and a special thanks again to Everyman Cinemas for the platform. So my name is Akua Gyamfi, founder of the British Blacklist, and a little quick rundown of how this is going to run. I will be speaking to Ms. Sareeta Domingo, who's the curator of Who's Loving You, and all these wonderful other authors that you can see. I won't introduce all of them now. We'll get that special surprise later. And you'll also be treated to some of them reading extracts from their books. It's going to be a brilliant night. I've read the book. I love the book. I'm in love. It's wonderful. And also, just before we wrap up, you guys will get a chance to ask questions. So please use the Q&A chat box at the bottom, and I'll try and get through as many as I can. Don't be shy. Ask your questions, and yeah, we'll crack on with speaking to Sareeta. So everybody who I'm not speaking to, see you in a minute. Okay, so welcome, Sareeta.
Thank you.
I think it's been a long time since we spoke, and I feel like the journey's come full circle. Like you're creating and editing an anthology of short stories about love by women of color. It's a magnificent, I can't even say the word, magnificent feat. Congratulations, and please tell us why you did this. Why now?
Well, thank you very much, first of all. And I remember you coming to my debut novel book launch. So it's so nice to have you doing this as well. Thank you. Yeah, Who's Loving You? The idea came to me actually when I was in the hairdressers, having a deep condition. Wow. And I just wanted to have a collection of stories written by women like me. I kind of felt like I was out there on my own a bit. I'd written 2 adult novels that are romance novels, but when I looked on the shelves or went to events, I just felt like I was one of the only women of colour there, certainly one of the only people of colour there. So I wanted to put together a collection of stories so I kind of felt a little bit less alone, I guess, but also to get a collection that featured some of these writers that I admire so much that aren't necessarily people you'd think of as writing romance. Obviously, some of them have, but I wanted to have stories just written by these amazing women that were love stories, but not necessarily as you might previously have known them.
I mean, it's a beautiful answer, and I identify with you. I think we all do. All women of color will be saying, "Where's the love for us?" You know, it's and especially for Black women, struggle love is real, and then nothing else. You can't dare to dream or be whimsical. So, in that, and you had this thing like you wanted us to be seen, you wanted us to feel love, and for you to feel love and not feel so lonely. What were your rules of criteria for getting getting this book together? What was like maybe top 3, top 4, top 5 kind of? Okay, this is what I need in this and this.
I actually didn't really have any criteria beyond asking these people who I already admired if they would write a love story.
Okay.
And I knew that I would get a broad range of stories from that. And I just wanted them to feel comfortable writing the kind of story that they wanted to write without feeling constrained in any way about the type of thing they should have to write or that it had to adhere to a certain type of narrative, anything like that. I wanted it to feel very broad.
And you did get like a wide range of people, and there's some people I was like, oh, I didn't know they were planning on writing. Or
I mean, I did want to sort of approach people that I admired that hadn't necessarily written fiction or written a novel or anything like that. Obviously some of them have, some of them haven't, but I just wanted that broad expanse of people that I admire.
And okay, you have said that, okay, the women that you admire, but how did you have a long list you had to edit down? Or...
I think almost everyone who I approached received me with open arms and was interested. And I didn't have, I knew I kind of wanted 10 stories in the collection and that I'd write one of them. So obviously I had a number to aim for in terms of how many people to approach. But one or two people had said yes and then had to drop out or whatever, inevitably. But generally speaking, the sort of wish list that I had are the women who are now in this collection. So I was very fortunate in that regard. I didn't have to sort of cast my net super wide and hope that somebody would answer my call. Like, it was really, really great to sort of approach people who, not every one of whom I knew personally, but who were so willing to listen and receive and were excited to do this project.
What, you know, there's the narrative in publishing that, you know, Black stories, and especially stories from Black women, especially about love, or women of color, love stories specifically, wouldn't sell, wouldn't be a hit. But yet your publisher kind of said, okay, I'm with you. Was it a hard sell, or was it like, because you're an established writer now, this was like a conversation?
Yeah, I don't know that my name necessarily opens those kind of doors. But shout out to Katie Ellis Brown, who I had a drink with after work one day. We were talking about a different project, actually. She was a commissioning editor at Trapeze Books, excuse me. And we were talking about one thing, but she said, do you have any other ideas? And I, as I say, had this sort of idea floating around in my head. I actually didn't really necessarily think it was even possible in a way. But I told her, you know, I really want to do a collection of love stories by British women of color. And she was like, I really love it. And so it went from there. You know, I wrote the proposal, but it was still, you know, it didn't exist, because obviously my projects are things that I've written and then approached publishers about. But this was something that the stories weren't written. I hadn't approached the people. It was just the idea. So again, I'm just really grateful that, you know, once the idea was out there, that people were receptive to it.
And can you tell us about your book, The Waves Will Carry Us Back? It's not the book, that's your story within the book. So what I loved about it is the humanizing and the emotionally connected way you breathe life into Andre, your lead character. And I felt that his vulnerability was wrapped up in a man who, in my assumption, society won't let be vulnerable or open to expressing his emotions or feelings in the way that you did in your story. What was your intention behind that?
It was intentional, and it often is my intention, to write Black male characters who are more open and in touch with their feelings, and perhaps that it's the female characters in my story that are the more reticent, the more, I guess, protective of their hearts. Andre is a very open character. He's very, you know, he's looking out for love in a way, I guess. And then it kind of blindsides him. He's met with this woman out of the blue, and he's kind of, I guess, immediately struck with this feeling that she's someone he connects with, even though they don't even really speak when they first meet. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to have a male character, maybe it's a fantasy, I hope not, that was like that was open to love.
And on that note, it is now time for us to hear an excerpt from The Waves Will Carry Us Back.
Thank you. I do just want to show you this picture, which is what sort of was the catalyst for the story. It's a picture that I cut out of the Guardian newspaper years and years ago, of a soldier cradling a migrant woman who had just washed up on the shore in very similar circumstances to my story. I changed him from being a soldier in the book to a surfer. But yeah, I'll read a little bit from the beginning of the story.
Thank you.
August 2001. Andre. It was quiet, that's what I remember. Only the soft rush of the waves and that early amber light spreading away across the sand. It was smooth where the water met the shore, but the dunes further up the beach cast shadows. My body clock was still dodgy from the flight over the Atlantic, so I'd taken advantage. I'd have been up with the sun anyway, though, because those waves were calling to me from the minute I landed. This was nothing like the familiar swells of fresh west that I'd drive out to at weekends back home, and definitely nothing like Rockaway, where I'd just been. Even the salt in the air tasted different. Here, there were no whispers as I carried a surfboard onto the subway. There were no laughs. No, hey, nigga, we don't do that shit, man. Hey, you see this guy? Echoing behind me on the pavements of New York before my headphones masked the words. My cousin Sean had warned me as much. A London accent coming out of my mouth blew most of their minds to begin with, let alone a black Brit with a board. But now my summer sofa and wave surfing tour had taken me to my final stop in Spain. My toes twitched eagerly, ready to grip the rough surface of the vessel I'd carried thousands of miles from the UK to NYC to Tarifa, ready to ride to see what the water in this particular spot on the planet had to tell me. I dumped my stuff on the sand, letting a shiver shake me more awake as I stared out to that line of horizon that felt like it was always a part of my vision. But there was a shape on it that morning, moving, a boat. I looked left and right, not another soul on the beach. I pulled up my wetsuit, still watching. Then I glanced down to pick up my board, but looked back up because I heard a rumble, just a burst of one from a motor, before it cut off into silence again. The boat was closer, a dinghy, I reckon you'd call it, nothing more than that. It was full though, completely full of dark bodies, so similar to mine, but theirs bowed in disheveled exhaustion. I stood staring as it coasted in, sneaking with a shh up to the shoreline. The people, men mainly, a couple of women, spoke to each other in hushed voices, but I could feel a weary euphoria coming off them as they spilled into the shallows, pulling the boat up with them. None of them seemed to see me. Their gazes were fixed over that rise in the beach, and they ran to it, fast and urgent in one mass, out of the water, onto the land and gone. All of them except for her. She was the last one, and as she took a few steps on foal-like legs, she stumbled and folded silently onto the sand, her face pressed into it, turned towards me. She was stunning. Her hair was cropped close so that the rest of her features could triumph. The smoothest skin stretched over her cheekbones, contoured by the morning light. Her lips were shaped like my most precious wave, full like a pillow and pale against their surrounding dark. And her eyes, massive and brown and so staggeringly beautiful, there was no way I could ever forget them. They blinked at me once, twice, 3 times, then air sank from her and she closed them.
Now, doesn't that make you guys want to read it? I was like, when I was reading it. Thank you. That was The Waves Will Carry Us Back, one of the stories in Who's Loving You, love stories by women of color, which is out today, guys. So get your copy. Come on, hurry up, get your copy. So now I would like to introduce the first round. Because there's so many of them, we're doing it in 2 groups. The first round of authors, Kelechi, Amna, Varaidzo, and Sara. Now, Sara, I'm so sorry. Might be Sara, but you will get to introduce yourself and correct me on the pronunciation of your name. So what I'd love you to do is please introduce yourself and the name of your story, and then we'll come back and ask some more questions. So I'll start with Amna, who I can see first.
Hi, my story is called Rani, and yeah, no, it's just so nice to be here, especially among so many people I admire. So to hear Sareeta's beautiful story, my inside is like, oh my God, that's so good. Mine's is so crap compared, because you have that natural instinct to be like, oh my God, everyone's amazing. But it is generally just such a privilege to be here. I just wanted to put a little bit of Scottishness, a little bit of Pakistaniness, a little bit of me in that book, in my story. And I'm so used to being asked to do more dark, heavy stuff, which I love. It was just so nice to do more of a light-hearted beach read type thing, because I love them. I consume them so quickly, and that's kind of just what I wanted to do. My strengths are definitely more on the screenwriting side, so this was an excellent kind of dipping my toes into what I can do. And Sareeta gave me the opportunity, and I'm really thankful. So thank you.
welcome. And Sara, it's Sarah, please correct me.
It's Sarah, but that's fine.
I'm being so literal, Sara, I'm being so literal. Sorry, Sarah, welcome. Please introduce yourself and your story.
Yeah, so my story is called Motherland, and it's about a girl called Safi who, her mother dies, and it's been 40 days since her mother died, and she chose to be buried in Iran, and the character's never been there before. Her family's from there, but she just never had a connection to it. And it kind of explores like the idea of motherland, which is a bit cliche, but I think often we get the sense of a motherland being, you're going there and you kind of see, I don't know, you kind of find yourself there, but this character just doesn't feel connection to it. She just doesn't know why. And then she's confused why her mum wants to be buried there. But it's through another character called Jabod that he takes her kind of like on a journey around Tehran. And then she kind of, falls in love and feels hope. So that's my story. And a bit more about me. I'm a debut novelist. My book is coming out this year, so it's the match. Yeah. And that's also kind of a love story as well. So I definitely have a keen interest in writing love stories. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you. And Ms. Kelechi, please introduce yourself and the name of your story.
My name is Kelechi Okafor, and my story is called The Watchers. And it's about Ndidi and Chinonso, who are spirits that reincarnate in different lifetimes to find each other or not, but ultimately to experience love. Their purpose is to experience love in one shape or form, in whatever facet they desire, and to learn from it and to become more divine beings and to just ascend higher and to connect with divinity. We meet them first through our story. We meet them in the story through the narrator, who is the watcher, and they are the watched. And he kind of tells us that, this isn't like your typical sort of romance stories that you spend your kind of entire life chasing. This is slightly different to that. And they meet at, for their first day at a slavery museum, and they think it's their first time meeting, but we obviously know that they've met before, and we get taken on the journey of when they had actually met in another lifetime. Just a snippet, because they've met in so many lifetimes, but we focus on, these two particular timelines. And I just thought it would be nice for people to get a bit of my woo-woo, to experience the esoteric that I love so much, and consider that love is an energy that transcends space and time. It kind of, we hold it in our bodies, but it goes beyond our bodies.
Thank you so much. And Varaidzo, please introduce yourself and the name of your book, your story.
It's Varaidzo. Sorry to also.
No, don't correct me. I was supposed to. Varaidzo.
It's you say it once and you remember it. It's cool. So yeah, my story was called Long Distance, and I was saying this earlier, actually. It's really funny because the whole story is about someone in her mid-20s who's very isolated, and so she starts making these connections online. And I came up with the idea for this story in 2019. I wrote the story, and when I sat down to finish the story, we were all in like a national lockdown, and I was completely isolated. I'd also just gone through like a very unexpected breakup, which is also what happens to my character. And we were both trying to like meet new people, but also in a very isolated situation where it wasn't really possible. And like me doing like online dating for the first time, and then my character trying to reach out to their love interest online. It was like I was like, have I called the pandemic into existence so that I have material for this book? Like, is that what's happened? But so it's about two people meeting online. The whole relationship kind of plays out online. I wanted to write a very modern romance, so I'm not sure they even touch the characters for the whole book. And yeah, it's just a cute sort of online romance with a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of fantasy elements in there, but mostly it's just like let's chat online type vibes, which is what we're all doing now. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So Sareeta, when you received these first batch of books, what was your reaction to the stories, and did it make like, was it like, oh my God, my dreams were happening, this is exactly what I want? What was it like reading these stories?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly can't convey the level of excitement that I felt getting the first stories in. I mean, obviously they didn't necessarily come in this order, but like being able to see that people can sort of do the thing, you know, execute in the way that I knew that they would be, but to get these stories, they're also different, as you can hear from just these descriptions, and to see how much of themselves everyone brought to their project, you know, to the stories, to their project. You can definitely feel each of these writers' sort of selfhood within the stories, but they're obviously also beautiful love stories, and love stories are, to a certain extent, a fantasy, I guess. So yeah, I mean, it was just incredibly exciting to get all of these. They're all incredible stories and incredible writers.
So Kelechi, thank you. So Kelechi, this is your first book, right? Oh, is she frozen? No.
First, I frozen.
Oh, you had for a second. But you're back. You're back.
Okay.
Okay.
My first question.
You're cutting out a bit. Can everyone hear Kelechi? Okay.
Am I back?
In and out. Maybe
Okay.
someone else for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, give me a sec. I'll go to Amna next. So in Rani, I felt like I learned in a short space of time a few aspects of Pakistani culture. And I loved how tradition was woven into a modern tale of love and realizing love. And I think, as Sareeta said, feeling the authors through the stories. I don't know you, but I felt like I was getting to know you, whether or not it's fully semi-autobiographical or just inspired by things around you. I felt that. So where did this come from, and was this your chance of, okay, people don't understand necessarily my culture, I'm going to throw it at you and make sure you understand in this way?
Actually, it wasn't kind of predetermined like that. It really was just Sareeta saying, you can write about anything, and I kind of got some like froze, because like anything, and that is such a wide spectrum. So I thought, went to the classic, write what you know. And sadly my nanny passed away a while ago, and I was in San Francisco when she did, so I kind of missed that. And I had the intention of, when I came back, to be asking her all these questions, because I was really interested in her genealogy, and then I just missed it, and I felt bad ever since. And I guess, again, I did not start writing this, it just came out. There was no intention. And because I really love to, like with my sitcom and everything, I just try and be as organic as possible. I don't really want to shoehorn things in. And it may seem that way, but it's not my intention. And I really just want to be warm and funny, and kind of have this generational differences, and kind of like coming full circle with a little bit of like magical kind of going on. And anything, it was such a weird time, and I just really wanted people to read it and then just maybe feel a slightly content, and that they've read something that's entertaining, and that was just enough positivity for the day, I guess. And it was, again, a nice change. And Rani is just like, she's not me. She definitely has qualities that I wish that I did have. But I really wanted to make sure that she was well-rounded and flawed, and she wasn't that kind of character that was perfect and everyone else was like terrible. And I really wanted to bring in Raf as just like a cool guy, and like no one actually did anything wrong. It was just, oh god, spoilers. Basically, I just wanted to kind of revisit some things, and I had gone out, just like the author said before, I'd gone through a really bad breakup, and I was like, oh, men are trash, I'm so over this romance, me, no. So writing it, and I was like, oh yeah, I do love love, this is fine, it'll happen again. So it was kind of cathartic for me to remember that my heart is not as ice cold as I thought it was going to be forever. And Rani just really helped me get back in touch with that kind of version of me. And again, I just loved that I got to put my Scotland in it a little bit, and I got to put again my Pakistani culture in it. And you know how when white authors essentially they write from their background, but that's just they don't mean to do it, it's just how it works. That is what when I sat down and wrote it, that's where I wanted to come from. I didn't want to be like, oh, I'm going to leave this message. I just wanted to be like, right, if I'm writing a beach read, and I am not necessarily here to educate anyone, but I just want to tell a nice story, and that's what came out. And I guess I just hope people like it for the light-hearted, funny story that I hope it is. A little bit of cannibalism in there as well, but we can see.
It's really good. And actually, I wasn't saying, I hope you didn't, it wasn't shoehorned in. It's just like,
Oh,
I
no,
felt
no, no, at
there was
all.
enough in there that I was like, I'm learning something.
No.
And it was subtle as well. So it wasn't like, okay,
Great.
it was really subtle. And I felt it related because, African culture as well, very, very similar. Black cultures, it's similar. So I just felt it. It was really good.
That's amazing. Let's do that. Thanks.
So Kelechi, are you back? Are you back?
I'm hoping I'm back.
Yeah, we'll press on and see what happens. So first time author, am I correct?
Published fiction, yeah.
Yeah, and congratulations. So where did the idea come from, the Watchers? Because you mentioned that it's futuristic, it's traditional, and again, the culture's in there, but in this way that's very, I don't know, I just love the it's kind of Afrofuturistic, isn't it? It's that the Watcher, I just loved it. So I just wanted to get where the inspiration came from and why you did go down this particular route, in really looking at Afrofuturism.
It's funny because I didn't even have a term for it. I just write what I see. And, I've written threads before, but one of my most viral threads was when I said, in 2018, I'm going to move into some white people's home and I'm going to take over, and then I went and actually expanded on that. And that's when I started thinking about the fact that I do want to write fiction. I never considered myself to even be a writer, but I just ended up writing down the things that I was thinking. And I was like, okay, this is writing. So when Sareeta approached me about writing this, I just love the fact that upon all the ways that people see me online, where they kind of view me as, she's always speaking about this and she's always speaking of social justice. Somebody else was able to kind of look past that and go, but what else is she capable of doing? And I think that that's the beauty of Black womanhood, Black sisterhood, just the kind of sisterhood that we have when you are, I guess, non-white, right? And where you are able to see the multiple dimensions of the person. And so by Sareeta just taking that chance and going, would you like to write this? I thought, bet, cool, let me flex in this regard. And then actually looked at my repertoire of things, creating Sally in HR. I've been doing, this stuff. I just didn't put a name to it. But when it came to Ndidi and Chinonso, it's exactly, I was only writing down what I ultimately believe. Right? So I believe that there are watchers, I believe that we are watched all the time. Otherwise, what is the purpose of praying, So I believe that we are watched, and there are people there are forces that guard our destiny, that we've already decided what those destinies will be before we come into the physical realm. And their duty is to just guard that. In Yoruba spirituality, we have the Orishas, and, they have certain tasks, right? And you go to them to ask them to kind of help in certain regards. But we also, within Yoruba cosmology, we believe in the Ori, like your Ori is your chi that physically kind of sits at the top of your head, that is your destiny. And you choose your Ori before you enter into the physical realm. So you've already chosen that destiny. The whole point of it is that whatever happens, you want to be able to manifest that when you get into the physical realm. And I just thought that the destiny for Ndidi and Chinonso, as for us all in many different regards, is to experience love. No matter what else we think that we're doing in this physical experience right now, we're all really only here to express and to experience different facets of love. We already know unconditional love because we are created from unconditional love. So we already, in some regards, already know that. We've come to experience the other facets of love that are a bit more complex, especially when you are in a human body. And how does that love manifest when you, within a Black body, have experienced colonialism, you've experienced the transatlantic slave trade? We can't, for me, I can't talk about love or romance without talking about the backdrop that it falls within. I know everybody else has their different approaches, but I have to kind of amalgamate the things that I'm interested in, which is our history as the African diaspora, as well as our future. Like, where are we going from here with all of the things that we've experienced? How do we take that and still persevere with love? Because love is the most radical act, really, to choose every lifetime that you're going to come back. And realistically, I just think that that's radical. So that's what I wanted to bring the story, to be subversive, that there is power in love.
I mean, you did that. And thank you. But also do you know, and I think what you said is that Sareeta took a chance, but she approached you with something different, because there's always, there's an assumption about, whoever we are in the public sphere, there's an assumption put upon us. So when I read it, my assumption is, as well as I know you, or as little I don't know of you, when I read it, I was like, oh, okay, Kelechi, right. And that's not to undermine what I think of you or anything, but it is another like, oh, you got a string to your bow that, okay, I'm going to pluck that one. You did well. So it's so great that Sareeta saw that and thought, you know what, let me hear what Kelechi has to say, because there's other people wouldn't do that. And so I think I hear what you're saying, and I hear all of you where you're coming from. So, right, so, your story, Long Distance, is, though futuristic, very much speaks to how we used to approach dating back in the old days when I was, you little babies, I'm old. So that way of taking that time to get to know each other before we make assumptions or take action that could steer us another path. And I welcome that, because I felt like, I think in today's climate, we rush towards things, and though we have our devices take away the conversation. So I loved how you explored that. Can you just go a bit deeper into how Long Distance came about and why you approached it from this perspective?
Yeah, so the main setup for Long Distance was an idea that I came up with when I was about 18. I had this really kind of broad idea for a novel about, like, there was going to be like a social network where you could send messages from like the future back to the past, and it was this whole big idea, and it never came together, and I wasn't interested in writing it because I'm not very good at sci-fi. And then Sareeta came to me and was like, do you want to write a romance story? I'm also not very good at writing romance, so I was like, what am I going to do for this? I have no ideas. And then I came up with this story about people separated, because I think being in long distance relationships, I know so many people in long distance relationships, which has become particularly hard this past year. And I really wanted to explore that whole thing of building a relationship online, trying to meet other people when you're so far away from them. But then I had to sprinkle my own little bit of self in there, which is, there's this weird thing that maybe they're messaging from the future. There's like a weird sci-fi element to it, which I feel like I was a bit daunted by full romance, so I had to sprinkle the little sci-fi in there to make it not too scary for me, because I'm very in awe of romance writers. I think it's such a difficult and tender art to do. But it was also really fun for me to try and, as you said, explore that getting to know each other phase, because that's all you can do in long distance relationships, is you're just talking. But it was really fun to me to see that relationship develop, and also to kind of see them have a sexual relationship, even though they're separated for the whole novel, and to see how that would work and to try and build on that. And so, it wasn't, they kind of had to get to know each other because there was nothing else for them to do. They couldn't meet each other. And then when they try to, it all gets a bit strange. So it wasn't a thing where I approached it being like, I want to see the relationship develop. Like, I would have loved to have written a story where it's just like bang, 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 they go at it, they're in love. But the context of that story just didn't allow for that, unfortunately. So we did what we had to do.
I mean, that you're saying you're not good at writing love, and that you said you're not good at writing sci-fi, you successfully pulled that together in Long Distance. So it worked. I think you...
Yeah, I mean, so the reason me and Sareeta actually met, because I used to, way back in the day, I used to be the arts editor at Gowden when Gowden was first incepted, was first a thing. And I interviewed Sareeta about the story that she'd just published then, called The Nearness of You, which is a beautiful romance story, but it's also very dark. Like, I don't think Sareeta will be offended by me saying that, but there's like a lot of dark themes in that book. And when I read it, I was like, oh, you can do this with romance. Like, you can be a bit weird, you can be a bit dark, you can go against the grain and it still works. So that was definitely like having read that book was definitely very inspiring for me to kind of see how I could approach romance as someone that shies away a bit from like lovey-dovey stuff. having that as a blueprint of like, okay, you can do this and you can be weird and you can be dark and you can be sad and it can work. That was really cool. So having it be Sareeta who put this whole thing together, that was very cool for me.
Okay, brilliant. And Sarah, in Motherland, you gave us a slice of Iran through the eyes of someone who, though Iranian, had a perception of it that someone probably like myself outside the culture in the country may have had, put them through circumstances. But that was changed by a certain someone. And was this at all personal? Was this your kind of love letter to Iran, kind of a reestablishing of a perception of Iran? And are you Safi or Javad?
Interestingly, not like my own experience. Like I did go to growing up, so it's quite different. I think I went in it more like, because I'm quite anxious generally, and I always feel like this anxiety about like Safi was really anxious about mum dying, and I kind of thought, what would that be like if like that happens, and then like her whole kind of world falls apart, like she quits her job, she has to move from London back to Bradford, like everything kind of falls apart. And I was quite intrigued by, I'm intrigued in general by the way that Iran is like perceived, like in the media and in books as well. Like I think, there was that whole like World War III and like people making jokes about Iran. And that made me feel very uncomfortable. I think people kind of they just have a perception of it as being a certain thing. And I think generally Iranian writers aren't kind of Iranian British writers, we don't see enough of them, so we don't get to see like different perspectives of it. So I kind of wanted to go in with someone who kind of has a perception of Iran, kind of that it's strict and that, it's not for her. And actually like through another person, she sees like the fun in it and that actually it's not, totally strict. They're human beings too, like everyone else, of course. And that she can have like kind of a love story within that and kind of, just see the beauty of like her motherland. But it's not going to be automatic. Like she comes off the airport and it's like, oh my God, this is like amazing. It actually takes time, like 40 days for her to actually, see the beauty in her motherland.
I think you did it perfectly. Literally, I was on that journey with Safi and I was like, yeah. So my perception is I don't know Iran at all, but I learned it in this small story to understand a bit of it. Like not everything, but just a bit of it. And you did a good job. So we're going to have to wrap up soon. So I did want to ask, how did you guys lean on Sareeta for support? Was there any kind of two-way conversation? Were there any panic moments like, oh my God, I can't do this. You've asked me to do this book. Leave me alone. I'm running away from it. I'm not meeting this deadline, whatever. How did you guys lean on Sareeta and how did you offer her support? You can talk about as you own.
For me, I feel like Sareeta has the patience of a saint because I would not have been able to juggle all of that. And there were a few moments where I remember being like, emailing Sareeta, being like, do you mind if I call? And she's like, oh, I'm really busy, but sure. And I was just like, you can tell me if this isn't good and I won't be offended if you don't want me in the book. Like, just like, that's okay. And it was just because the first draft, I was in the middle of my writing for TV. So I was very busy, but I wanted to be a part of this. So my first draft, and thankfully only really very few eyes have been on it because it's trash, like utter trash. But when Sareeta sent me an email when it was on its like third draft or something, I could see genuinely how far it'd come because she was just so lovely about it, but she had picked up on the bits that had really bloomed. And it just made me feel a little bit better because I was like, no, just fire me, just like take me off the book. And but she was just so patient and she allowed me to do some really bad writing before getting to some good writing without my anxiety flaring up to 100. So I honestly I'm completely impressed by the way she handled all of it. And I don't know if you've probably read her emails, but even her emails are poetic. Like the way she writes an email makes me so happy. I do not have that. My emails are very anxious. Like, I'm so sorry I'm late, I'll get it. But Sareeta's are just so, oh man, as soon as I saw her email to me asking me to be a part of this, I was just like, who writes emails this beautifully? And I was just intrigued ever since.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. Thank you so much.
I mean, get your flowers, girl, get your flowers. So time is right. We're going to come bring you guys back at the end. But now I'm going to have to send you away to the ether of the dark screen. And we're going to hear now from Varaidzo, who's going to read from her story, Long Distance. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks everyone. That was so fun to this is the first time we've all seen each other, so it's really nice to get to hear everyone else speak about their stories. So I really struggled to find a little excerpt from this that wasn't a massive spoiler. And I've settled on a few pages, which I feel like we'll all resonate with, because it's when the backstory is that my characters have been talking online for a little bit. One of them's working the night shift at work, and she spends her evenings chatting to this woman that she's only ever seen online. And this is the first time that they see each other. It was a Monday when May finally asked to see me. Don't you have a camera, microphone, anything? She said. I had it all, but the thought made me nervous. I'm at work, I typed. It's probably best if I don't. Come on, dude, she said, exasperated. I'm not asking for much. I just want to check you're not, I don't know, some weirdo teen who likes perving on crying women or whatever. I looked around at the grey emptiness of my office, everything in shadow except my yellow desk chair and the computer screen. Nobody would catch me if I turned the camera on. I'd only be reported to myself. But I felt self-conscious. I rarely made an effort for work, making do with washing my face and oiling my braids. Who was there to see me after all? Now, as it turned out, there was May. I want to see who I'm speaking to, she said. Please. I nodded, not for her benefit, but to encourage myself. I requested to join her stream. Seeing my face pop up below hers startled me, and I began to preen automatically, straightening my top and tucking any loose braids back into their bun. May looked delighted, stared at me with the Bambi-eyed joy of a child who has just seen snow for the first time. Hello, June, she smiled. Hi, May, I said awkwardly, crossing my arms protectively over as much of my body as I could. As you can see, not some perv. Oh, I don't know about that, May said, smirking, her gaze lazily taking me in. I felt my cheeks go hot and was rattled to feel my stomach flutter nervously as I watched her, watching me. So this is your office, she said. Yup. It's bigger than I imagined. You were imagining my office, I pondered aloud. I really like your braids, she said, ignoring me. I put a hand up tentatively towards my hair. Thanks. I can never decide if they suit me. They definitely, May began, but interrupted herself by yawning. You should sleep, I told her. This is late even for you. To see your face, though, she said dozily. Will you watch me? I always do, I told her. Keep your camera on this time? Of course. Thank you.
No. Thank you. Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, so back to our scheduled events. Welcome everyone to the launch of Who's Loving You, presented by Everyman Cinemas and Dark Matter, with special thanks to Pages of Hackney, our bookseller partner, and Trapeze Books and Orion Books. Who's Loving You, Love Stories by Women of Colour is out today, and special thanks again to Everyman Cinemas for the platform. So we've spoken to our first group of authors, and now we're going to have our second bunch come through. Please, as I have seen you doing, put your questions in the Q&A chat box, and I will get your questions at the end of the, well, not the end, the near the end bit of the whole event. And yeah, it's been really amazing to hear from these guys. So how are you feeling, Sareeta?
Let me find my unmute. I'm feeling so, I mean, it's just so edifying to get everyone together who's been working on this project. I mean, it's sort of sad that we can't all be physically in the same space, but it's just so, I mean, obviously I've been hands-on with this project for so long, but it's so beautiful to just see how wonderful everyone is and how much their stories have meant to them, and being part of this project has meant to them. It's really, really great.
Yeah, and well done to you, man. Well done. So guys, could I get my other people in the room, please? Kuchenga, Rowan, Daniellé, and Dorothy. Please show yourselves on the screen. Welcome. Hi. So I forgot to reintroduce myself. I'm Akua Gyamfi, founder of the British Blacklist. It is not about me tonight, though. It is about these wonderful women who have come together to talk about love, celebrate love in these wonderful short stories in this lovely collection of books. And yeah, we don't get to hear about it enough. We don't get to read about it enough, and you guys have done the damn thing. So please, could you all introduce yourselves and the name of your book, a little bit about your book, and I will go around the room. First person up will be Rowan, please.
Hey, hello. So my name is Rowan, and my story in the collection is called No One Is Lonely. And it's set in a slightly near future where a young part Chinese woman has just moved to the big city. She's in her early 20s, and her job is being the joke AI for these ovens that are supposed to make their users feel less lonely and like they have a friend in the kitchen who's helping them. And that's actually based on something that I found out, which is that all those Siri jokes, real humans write them, of course, not computers. And so I found out I was fascinated by that as a job. Anyway, so that's her job, but the emotional and love part of it is a bit about being young and having moved away from your parents and not having any connection suddenly and being so hungry for any kind of love, for friendship, for family, for community. And her boss ends up kissing her, and she, who is much older than her. And the story is not, it's about that, but it's also about, without sounding cheesy, learning to love yourself in certain ways and learning to survive technology. She goes to these parties where you can't use technology and realizes she doesn't know how to make small talk. Anyway, I'm going to stop telling you about random moments from the story. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to say, stop, because you're going to say too much. But it's, yeah, I've got a specific question for you when I come back to you. Danielle, please introduce yourself and give us a little snippet, a little bit about your story.
Hi, I'm Danielle Dash. Dash stands for Daniellé Abena Scott Horton, and I wrote The Row. And before I got into like TV and journalism and stuff, I worked at William Hill, and like I think that there is this misconception about like how betting works in Black communities, brown communities, and the effect that it has. And without wanting to, you know, get on my soapbox, I wanted to explore the effects that it has, especially on the women in the community. And, you know, I wanted to look at love through a different lens, somebody coming into a community that they're not from. And so with Edith and Mariah, I was falling in love with writing again, because I decided that I wasn't gonna write fiction or for screen for a while. And then, you know, Sareeta came and asked me, well, I don't know, I feel like she kind of told me that I was going to write this. And during the first lockdown, that first draft just unknitted so much for me. And I love both of these characters so much, and I hope that everyone does too. And it's a love letter to South London and the healing qualities that summer in that community can do for a broken soul.
Girl, thank you. And Ms. Dorothy, please, could you introduce yourself and your story, please? You're still on mute, my love.
Oh, second time I've done that. The whole this time, I'm always very good. Anyway.
Zoom life.
My name is Dorothy Kuchenga. I have written 17 books. I've just finished number 17, and that's coming out in July. But and I've known Sareeta for quite a long time, since the beginning of her book writing career, and I think she's wonderful. I can't say enough about how wonderful I think Sareeta is. And my story is called My Heart Beats, and it's about a woman who is in love with this guy. He's been in love with him for a long time and decides to tell him one day how she feels, and it's too late. He basically says he's with somebody else. And so we go through their whole relationships, they keep meeting up again, and she's really humiliated when she tells him that she's in love with him, and he kind of goes, so, and we kind of see them over the coming years, how they keep meeting up again and then kind of moving apart, and until we get to another moment in the book, but in the story, but I don't want to give too much away. And yeah, that's my story, basically. It's a traditional love story. I haven't written that many love stories, to be honest, in the past few years. I've been focusing on thrillers and murdering people and detectives and stuff like that. Although those books generally have a romance through them, but they're not the main focus. And so it was really nice to just get back to writing romance, which I absolutely love. I love reading romance books. I always have. So that's my story, and that's me.
Thank you. And finally, Kuchenga, please introduce yourself and your story.
Hi everyone. Hi, I'm Kuchenga. Yeah, I'm a writer and a journalist, and I started writing when I did a creative writing course with the Open University. Shout out to the Open University for the life expansion that it has inspired, in our nation and stuff. And yeah, like journalistically, I got my start in activism. Galdem was the first platform to give me a go and stuff. So yeah, I've written quite broadly in that respect. But when it came to fiction, I just find it so liberating. And when Sareeta asked me to write a love story, I was like, I wasn't feeling loving. Do you know what I mean? I was like, but they're trash, boo. Like, literally, what do you want me to say? Like, do you know what I mean? So, I took a little moment, but I met a trans girlfriend in Soho. She was working on the Daughter Club, and I was telling her that I was about to write a story, and she was like, oh, babes, just give us a story with a happy ending. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, do you know what I mean? For everything that we go through, and that's all you want, I can do that, babes. I had a memory of back in like 2013, 14, I was working as like a cocktail bartender waitress at a very hipstery restaurant just by Dalston Kingsland. And I think I had like an American Apparel kind of leotard thing going on, and little skinny jean moment with my high tops, do you know what I mean? Beat. And I went down to the market just to go and get some lemons and limes for the bar for that night. And there was like a group of lads like on the stall, and he looked at me, he goes, you're a bit dolled up for the market, ain't you? And I was like, this is my everyday, babes. Like, I don't know why you're here. But anyway, I didn't end up linking him. I was late for work. Do you know what I mean? I had like things to do. But like on a low key, I kind of always felt, what if? Because like I've always been like really conscious of like the conversation around like transness and gender non-conforming in the media being so left of what I experience. And so I just wanted to like write a story where someone in my subject position was intensely desired, but writing it from the male perspective to explain how he could just be so gormless. And
Can I cut in then, because I was going to actually ask you that, so I'm going to go back to front. So I'm going to add to your answer, because I was going to ask you, why did you tell the story through Daniel's eyes rather than Josephine's? Because, and in my question, I was going to say, you offer a perspective and experience that's rarely shared, and you hold your lead character to account in some ways. And that's all of us who are outside the trans community, where we make judgments, where we don't understand. And so it's quite clever how you do it, because the lead character is the one who's us, who don't know the world, and you hold us accountable. So please just tell us why you told the story that way.
I guess I have to go to a morbid theme here. Like, I wrote about Naomi Hersey, who's a Somali trans woman who was murdered in 2000. 18, and in the aftermath of her murder, I had to write and help commemorate her life, basically, for the community and stuff. And something that was really unusual was that I had all of these men who'd linked her, coming into my DMs, like in mourning. They weren't comfortable to, mourn her publicly as we could do. And I never thought of that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've always got like a community of women, do you know what I mean? Whether I'm, I'm raging, I'm angry, I'm distraught, do you know what I mean? I pick up the phone. But they don't, and so here I was, do you know what I mean? Not having known her personally, but I grew to know her posthumously, which is very unusual. And yeah, I just got all of these like men who were like mourning with me. And so I think that means that I've got like a cauldron of like things like, where like thoughts that I own, experiences that are my own, are rich and salient, and that can provide a lot of good material for a story. But also I guess episode 2 or 3 of Pose, the Stan and Angel relationship, where Stan has like a monologue, explaining like his like interior world, like a straight white man and stuff. And like, on a low key, a lot of people weren't here for it. Do you know what I mean? I don't care about Stan. Do you know what I mean? He wants another white man story. Literally, get back to them. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, literally, turned to my lover and be like, they're not feeling you, bitch. I mean, it's not your time. But I am intrigued as to like, that suppression and like how they aren't able to express their love. Like, I'm not interested in who don't like me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm on TikTok and I'm not attracted to black women. No one's looking at you, boo. Do you know what I mean? Okay, like, I'm not attracted to trans women. I got a man. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm cool. Do you know what I mean? But I will always take the opportunity to speak about where the love is. Was it Nina Simone or someone who says, if there's not room, you got to get up from the table? I do that, because there's so much love for me elsewhere. It's my mission in life to find it, enjoy it, and fortunately, as a writer, I get to write about it.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you. So moving on to, I've lost myself. I was so enthralled, I've lost myself. Rowan, please. You wrote No One Is Lonely. And by the way, I just wanted to let you know, I'm still not comfortable with appliances that assume a personality. I don't like it. iRobot has scarred me for life. No, I refuse to make friends with Siri and Alexa. So no. So in a world where it seems that all the records show we are more lonely, however, we are more isolated. We are depending on our devices to feel loved. Why is your story titled No One Is Lonely?
Okay, so it's a quote from something her boss says to her about her job, that her job is to make all of these people who can't see her and who think of her as an oven not lonely, that it is supposed to make jokes, it's supposed to notice when they've rewarmed pizza 3 times and suggest that maybe they should cook a chicken. It's she's supposed to be taking on this role for other people, but she has no one in her life to take on the role for her, really. She has a like less good AI that breaks partway through the story, but it doesn't quite fulfill that role. And she has to, and it is in some ways a slightly ironic title. She is very lonely in the beginning of the story.
Thank you. But and see, the thing breaks, guys. Devices break. Do not rely on them for love. Seriously, human interaction is so much better. Throw away your Siris and your Alexas. Yes, I said it. But I just loved your exploration and how the appliance of the ovens were like an extension of her emotions and stuff like that. I really loved that. I think you captured that really well. Danielle, in the row, your 2 female characters, Edith and Mariah, save each other after a not too smooth start, which I found quite interesting in a heteronormative world where women are always trying to fix up to impress a man. But I found there was a freedom in the resolution that Edith and Mariah came to. can you expand on their relationship without spoiling it, but just expand on why you presented them this way? Because it really, to me, is like a little bit of like, you see, we're not that bad, we're not that petty. We actually can resolve things in our own way, woman to woman.
I think, you know, I came out, like, I don't know, it wasn't a surprise to anyone when I was like, guys, I like girls, and everyone's like, we guessed. And I think for me, the friendships I've had with women have always been quite intense. And so it took me a long time to realize, oh, okay, cool. So it was, I guess, a way to like explore that and be like, okay, yeah, like there are times when things don't go right all the time, but you want to work on that, and you don't want to, you get to an age where you can't just be dashing away friends now, okay? Like we have to look after the friends we have. And even when things get contentious and a little bit fraught, you wanna like invest in the friendship and like work, especially if you realize that somebody's coming to you with the same kind of energy and you know that there's love there. And so I think for me and with Edith and Mariah, like that's just something that I wanted to, how do you get past something that's really hard?
And you did that, and I just wanted to reiterate the fact that men don't give us a chance when we mess up. But this thing that these two women, they're like, okay, you came at me, but we can work it out in a way that we understand each other. We get it. So I really had a middle finger up to the guys that pissed me off. And for Ms. Dorothy, oh, the joy of speaking to you, but also, oh, the frustration of my heart beats, because I've been there, I've been Zari, and I've missed shooting my shot so many times, love from afar, been friend zoned just because I haven't had the gumption to take charge. So what or who inspired Zari's journey in this narrative?
Well, I can be quite sure that the guy I was thinking of isn't on this chat, and that my husband's not on this chat as well. So, you know, I'm safe. But no, I think we've all been there. We've all liked somebody, and we've never been courageous enough to kind of go, do you know what? I feel something for you. And also, you know, sometimes you do tell somebody, and they go, no, not for me. And that's what I wanted to explore in this story. That moment when you do tell somebody, and they might feel something for you, but they are in a relationship with somebody else. I mean, for Zari, and I don't want to give too much away, it's somebody she actually really hates that he's in a relationship with, and she discovers. So that adds that extra level of pain. But the story is not about pain, it's about love and finding yourself and finding the other piece of your heart, I suppose.
I just wanted to quickly check, is this your first time contributing to a collection of stories?
Oh no, I've written quite a few short stories.
Oh, okay, because I was trying to do my research. I'm sorry. I wanted to say, if it was your first time, why yes to this one? And if it's not, why yes to this? Why yes to Sareeta?
I said, well, because I love Sareeta, as I said, I adore Sareeta. And, you know, throughout my career, I've always tried to help out other Black women, writers particularly. I always want to, you know, help them. I try and help as many writers as I can, but particularly Black women writers, because I want to have as many of us as up there as possible, and women of color, but particularly Black women. So when all those years ago, Sareeta's editor, or was it Sareeta herself, asked me if I'd read her first book, and I said yes, because I wanted to help out another Black woman, and it was a great book. It's a fantastic book. I really enjoyed it, and that's always been my ethos throughout my career, to try and help as many other Black writers as possible to, you know, to get up there, to get in front of as many people as possible. So that's why I said yes, because, you know, it's Sareeta. She asked me, and I thought yes. And you know what? It's nice to just write about love and not write about people being murdered and kidnapped and all that stuff that I've been doing for. I mean, I love doing that. Don't pretend I don't. I won't pretend I don't. I love it. But I like writing about love as well.
Thank you, everybody. So for all of you and Sareeta, what was the most difficult task to meet in completing this project? And if you can, guys, we've got like a couple of minutes left before we go to the next bit. So if you can, I want to go around all of you just saying, what was your most difficult thing and how did you overcome it? If you can say it in a sentence or two. Sareeta, I'll start with you.
The whole thing. It's a lot to put a project like this together. There's a lot of admin, like a lot of admin. There's a lot of juggling each person's needs and making sure that I'm giving the right level of feedback and all that kind of thing. So it was all a challenge, but it was also so edifying to do. It was a wonderful project to work on. I mean, I know I said it loads, but I'm really excited. And thank you so much, Dorothy. Like, you've been such a support through my whole career. Don't make me cry. But I really appreciate that.
Listen, nobody cry here because I cry when anyone else cries. Literally, I'm crying now for no reason. It's not even my book, so don't cry. Rowan, what about you? Something you found difficult and how you overcame it in this project? You're still on mute.
Thank you, sorry. This isn't, well, something I find generally difficult in writing is that I'm mixed race and I like to write about mixed race characters, and I like to not have an entire 2 pages where I tell you about whose their grandparents were, which is very tough. And one of the things that was some way what helped me overcome it was all of you, because by being in this anthology surrounded by women of color, I was able to drop many fewer hints and explanations because I thought no one's going to assume this protagonist is white. And I'm deeply grateful to Sareeta for letting me have a story here for that reason.
Thank you so much. Danielle. Sorry, I know you were sipping.
I guess, you know, like I'm like in my role as the producer, I'm always giving notes. And when the notes came back on my first draft, I was like, pardon? I personally thought that first draft was excellent. But it was really wonderful working together with people who understood my vision, and Sareeta she understood what I wanted to put across, and so it just brought me great joy. It was hard, especially letting go of some of those things that I thought I couldn't live without. But yeah, no, that was a challenge and something that I'll always like treasure.
Thank you. And Kuchenga, what was difficult and how did you overcome it?
You know, I always ascribe to, you know, the Virginia Woolf thing, you know, you're having a room of one's own, but like annoyingly, because I listen to writers' podcasts and writers' things and stuff, and I was hearing about all of these like male writers like James Joyce and Hemingway and stuff, and they just got all their laundry done for them. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, none of the child, and I was there like hacking away at the laptop, sweating, gotta get to the market, do you know what I mean? And stuff. So I called like a friend of mine in distress, do you know what I mean? I was railing. But yeah, I was convinced by everyone, by the community of women writers around me that I could do it and stuff. And the editorial process was difficult. I was like, Danielle, I was like, excuse me. But really and truly, to be like at the summit of the mountain now with this beautiful work for all of us, I'm just so grateful for what it says about the time that we're currently in and our relationship to each other and stuff. Like, so yeah, that's me feeling cuddly.
Thank you. And Dorothy?
And for me, it's always been word count because I always overwrite. So my story began when I first finished the story, it was like 7,000 words or something. And for some reason in my head, I had it as 5,000 words. And then I looked at the brief again and I was like, oh, I need to cut it in half. So I started hacking it to pieces going, that has to go, that has to go, that has to go, until I got to, it's still over. I know Sareeta was very nice about it. She went, oh, it's fine. Even though it was still a lot more than it should have been. So that was my...
It was everything it needed to be.
Yes, that's exactly. Thank you, Sareeta. This is why I love you, you see. You find a way to make it work. Yeah, so I think that was... And also, at the time I was writing it, there wasn't a lot of love in the world. It wasn't an easy place in the world. So it was kind of hard to find the story and to bring the people together and to make them, you know, to make it a love story, to make it something that people would want to read and would want to go, oh, that's nice, rather than going what the world actually felt like at the time. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you, ladies, for speaking to us this evening. And now, as I send the rest of you off, Ms. Danielle Dash will read from her story, The Row.
Edith and Carmel worked alongside each other, and the morning turned to afternoon. Edith tried not to look at the clock that taunted her on the wall. She thought not looking would make time go faster. She became attuned to the rhythm of the days, and when she didn't see Mariah as the first and then the second bells went off for the 1:15 race, she didn't panic. Edith was certain she'd get to see her soon. Standing at the door of the salon, Edith found Mariah alone, busying herself. Swaying to the low rumble of music, Edith could feel through the soles of her shoes. Mariah looked up. Edith, you okay? Mariah's voice called out to her. Hi, yes, I'm okay, thank you. You? Her voice a whisper, lost among the bass of the music. Come in, babes, I can't hardly hear you. Mariah beckoned for Edith to come closer. Edith willed herself forward. That's better. What's up? I upset Carmel again? No, not that. A host of butterflies took flight at once in Edith's belly. I wanted to get my hair done. She begged herself to calm down. For the dance this Saturday? Of course, I'd love to. Mariah patted the salon chair in front of her. Come, let me give you a consultation. Oh, I have to get back. Edith's hands could have wrung one another off their wrists. Mariah dipped her head, flicked her eyes, those big eyes, up at Edith and pouted. Please. Edith acquiesced. Mariah swept a hairdressing gown over Edith. Can I take out your hairband? Edith nodded. Mariah released her hair from the simple black tie. Edith's hair popped and preened for Mariah. Mariah pulled both her hands through Edith's hair, her fingers drawing across her scalp. Edith wanted to close her eyes so she could record the feeling. She never did anything to it herself other than washing it once a week. When it dried, she pulled it into a band where it stayed until she washed it again. Your hair's dry, babes, Mariah said. Edith looked down at her lap. Under the gown, she squeezed her hands together. No, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Mariah pushed the dry flakes of dead skin off Edith's shoulders. Her hands stayed there and she searched the mirror for Edith's eyes. When you come in on Saturday, I'll give you a treatment, show you how to moisturize it. Mariah's kindness squashed the bad feeling inside, and the butterflies took flight once more. Mariah's eyes lingered a moment too long. She swept her hands down Edith's shoulders to her arms. A simple gesture. Edith hoped it meant something. Mariah leaned forward over Edith's shoulder. Hold these for me. Mariah dropped the hairbands into Edith's lap. Mariah sprayed her hands and then sprayed Edith's hair. She parted her hair into sections and made sure the oil got down into the roots. Edith had never smelt anything so sweet.
And we've never heard anything so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. Now, could everybody please turn on your cameras? Let us see you all in your glory. We need you back, ladies. And this has been amazing, absolutely amazing. It's an honor to be talking to you guys. Thank you for letting me chat at you and asking all the questions. And I'm now going to shush and hand over to the people in the audience. I'm going to get out of the chat and I'll be asking their questions on their behalf. So I'm not really going to shut up, am I? So anyway, I'll jump straight into it. So guys, what is your favorite part about writing love stories? I'm going to probably pick one or two of you to answer so it's not like a crazy madness and over talking. So I'll go to Sarah. What was your favorite part of writing love stories?
I think my favorite part is when they're already kind of established and like they actually talk about like their kind of issues. I quite like that, like when they talk about like their past or something and they kind of open up to each other. Like, that's my favorite bit. I don't really like so much the first meeting. I always found that a bit tricky, but the actual like when they like delve into themselves and like their kind of conflict in life and have this like connection, I really like that. So I think we're so influenced by like our families, and I think that's something that like when you really get to know someone, you kind of learn who they are through that. So that's something that I really like.
Thank you. A question for Kelechi. You spoke about love being an energy that transcends space and time, something we hold for a fleeting moment in the bigger picture of time in our bodies. Listening to you speak about the gravity of love as esoteric, love as a timeless abstract, makes me want to ask, was the gravity of love as experienced within bodies, racialized as Black, difficult at points? Was it a cathartic experience? Thank you, Adjoa, for making me read some prose right there.
So from what I gathered from that, was it challenging to write about this, knowing that the bodies are racialized, right?
Yes.
No, it wasn't challenging. It wasn't challenging in the way that one would think, because the whole point of this is that Black people do experience love. Black women do experience love. The fact is, it's the stale white publishers that don't want to put it out there. They pretend that it doesn't exist. We know it exists. So the whole point of this was to make sure that people understand that the same way that when it's the brutalization of our Black bodies, like you can show that for 8 minutes and 43 seconds or however long, like you can show that on TV and have us watch Black people dying. The same energy that you can give to that, to show that across the world, why can't you give the same energy into celebrating the love and joy and peace that so many of us do feel? But because there is a specific narrative that we have, like culturally, we have given consent to, and becomes the prevalent narrative, that to me is part of the problem. We're happy to see, not us generally, but you know, society is happy to present us with the Black trauma. But when we talk about love, then it's like, oh, do they feel that? Do they know what that is? And so I wanted to show that not only do we know what that is, the love that we embody is so powerful that even with all of the atrocities that have been committed and inflicted on our bodies, it can still transcend time. That is something that you cannot kill. You can definitely kill the body, but you cannot kill the love. You cannot kill that energy. It will come back and back again. And in that perseverance, that overrides white supremacist patriarchy as far as I'm concerned. And that's the narrative that I wanted to bring forward. And that's why I was going to give a spoiler, but all I'm saying is that that's why it's important that people got what they got. Okay, things were gotten. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for not dropping a spoiler. Anonymous, this is a question for Amna. I'm a young writer of Pakistani descent who currently plans to write a book of poetry on the intertwining themes of motherland, the British Pakistani experience, and the undercurrents of female sexuality through South Asian specific imagery. But she needs help. Where do we start? She aspires to be one of the women on the panel, which we all do, I'm sure, but she's just really not sure where to begin. And who are the right people to go to? Where are the right places to go? How to start writing this story?
Okay, so I kind of feel like I winged my whole career, so it happened by accident. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, so I didn't exactly have I don't think many of us here did have the traditional route into publishing, journalism, screenwriting, etc. But what I did have, and I didn't realise until I'd accidentally done it, was the power of social media. Don't get me wrong, I have a very love-hate relationship with it, and right now I kind of hate it. But that is where I was able to just like fire off my jokes and my observations and stuff like that. And it helped me kind of hone my voice, as it were. It also helped me be a bit more confident in my voice, because I was always had anxiety, not the greatest self-esteem, and I was always the sidekick in my own story. And there was something about having this voice that just made me the protagonist of my own story, which we should all be. And I think sometimes when you come from a Pakistani background, especially if you're a girl, you are kind of pushed into the background. And really just what I want to say, and I wish I had something like profound to say, but I really need people to kind of own their voice, bring that confidence, and also write what you know. Just don't feel like you have to explain every single thing. I read stories and sometimes in the leads are Jewish, and I understand Jewish culture to an extent, but I don't need my hand held through the entire thing. Same with Girls, for instance, was very like white and Catholic, but I didn't need my hand held through it. And that's how I kind of approach it for other people. They shouldn't need their hand held through it for me, and I'm no longer willing to give that kind of experience. You either get it or you don't, and I don't need it. That's it. But I hate when people used to say this to me. I really do. So I apologize for giving you this terrible advice that's really annoyingly works. You just have to try and write every day or as much as you can. And it doesn't matter if it's good, it doesn't matter anything, because at the end of the day, people romanticize this profession, but it is a job. You can't wait for the muse to come. You can't wait to be inspired. It's great when that happens. But if you want to be in this for long term, you have to treat it like a job, and also keep it within yourself, because it's so easy. I've seen people get carried away in the hype. Hype doesn't pay bills, doesn't pay bills. You want longevity, and that means you have to hone your craft. I entered so many competitions as well just to see what I get into, and also get so comfortable with rejection. Rejection will be your middle name. Just go for it. Some competitions I didn't even get emails back. Some of them I won somehow, but that was all part of the journey. You're not too good to be doing that, to be entering competitions and to be entering these kind of projects that people put on, because everything's an experience. And when I was younger, I was a lot more impatient, and now I've just got so much of life to write about as well. So if you want to be a good writer, it's so cliche, but you have to live. You have to have things to write about. And that's not always Snapchat and Instagram and whatnot. Live, be deep in your relationships, your friendships, and all those things, because that's where the stories come from. But yeah, again, when people used to say this to me, it annoyed me, but honestly, try and write every day, just something, and you will be in it for the long haul. If you just want that quick and hype thing, then yeah, like just do a few tweets and go viral, and then just live off that. But that will get you, it won't get you as far. Just consistency. I hope that's helpful, but
you need to see the comments, lady. Everyone's like, yes. Speak it. You did well. Yeah, and I'm taking stuff for myself too whenever I get to write one day. Varaidzo, a question from someone anonymous. You can share your names, guys. How much do you think being in a pandemic influenced the story as you finished it? Do you think it would have been a different story if the pandemic hadn't occurred?
Oh, that's so difficult, because so the overarching idea came before the pandemic existed, and I sent it to Sareeta, and Sareeta was like, yeah, this sounds amazing. It does sound like a film that I've seen, but like, do it, I guess. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's the film if I just plagiarized the story? Was it the Keanu Reeves film?
Yeah, it was The Lake House, which I think is based on a Japanese film, actually.
Yeah, so I haven't seen The Lake House, but what everyone I described the story to was like, it sounds like The Lake House. And I was like, well, I haven't seen that film, so I'm going to do it anyway. And that idea came before the pandemic existed. And then the timeline was literally like, I got broken up with, and then 3 days later, Boris Johnson announced the lockdown. So the combination of those two things, it was like, so I'm going through heartbreak. I can't go and see my friends. I can't meet anyone new. I'm just in the house and I have a deadline. I guess I'm going to write. So I think I can't say for sure that it definitely influenced like how the story came out, but how could it not? Like that, being in that kind of headspace and trying to write something romantic was so difficult, and that's why the story definitely came out how it did. Like it's definitely a story that focuses on like grief, on loss, on heartbreak, and then trying to find the love amongst that, and that was really cathartic for me. There's a particular paragraph that one of the characters says about her own grief, and about how it in a way it feels like warmth, because it's like the love is still burning, and so grief is only byproducts of the, I don't know, that ash from the love that burns. And writing that line really helped me get through my own heartbreak about my relationship and the pandemic, and just like how weird 2020 was, and that paragraph really carried me through. So I can't say that the pandemic influenced it, but it definitely helped me through that time, which was such a hard time. And now I'm hoping that we push this story out here and now 2021 can be whatever, but we have this book of romance to hold with us and to like make us feel good. So it's a bit of both, but the overall ending was a positive one either way.
Thank you, girl. Dorothy, I wanted to ask, so someone said thank you so much to Sareeta for bringing this collection together and to me for hosting. Thank you, guys. I've got so this lady, Sarah Jade, has got a question about the short story form, which many novelists say is so much harder to write than full novels. So it's a general question for everyone, but I'd love to come to Dorothy to answer this. How do you find the process of writing such compelling and arresting shorts when the story needs to immediately hook the reader in and you've got such a short space of time to tell an in-depth story that people are going to get the gist quite quickly in that space?
Yeah, and like I said, one of my problems with everything I write is overwriting. I write too much. And so but I love editing. So I love cutting things out. I love being ruthless. So for me, I will write the story as long as it needs to be, and then I'll go back and see what needs to be cut out, what needs to go, you know, what there's always stuff that you can just ditch and you can just be ruthless with it. And I have no problem with being, because I used to be a journalist and an editor, so I was very good at that. Was one of my best parts of my job, like cutting things ruthlessly. So for me, it's difficult because, you know, you want to tell a story in a very short amount of time, and when you're writing a book, a novel, from when I learned way back in 1872, you have to grab people by the first 3 pages. If you haven't caught them by the first 3 pages, then they aren't going to pick up the book and buy it. So, and I go with the same principle with a short story. First 3 paragraphs, you have to grab the person so that they'll carry on reading. So I will put everything together and then I'll go back and ruthlessly edit it. I'm very good at that. That's how I write my books. You know, I don't have, and also for me, I've been doing it for so long, I don't actually have an ego about it. If someone doesn't like something, I will find a way to make it better or to fit, you know, what it needs to be. Because we had quite a few things that Sareeta sort of said about the story, which obviously I had written in one way and I read in one way. And then when Sareeta read it, she was like, yeah, that doesn't seem very clear, or, you know, that person.
The pressure of editing a legend like Dorothy.
I was just about to say, imagine telling a whole Ms. Kuchenga. Can you do that again, please? How did you feel, Sareeta? Please, I beg.
It was daunting, I'm not gonna lie, but you know, also obviously, or maybe it's not obvious, but I'm an editor by trade, so yeah, it was a little bit like, should I really be? Anyway,
but I didn't respond badly, did I?
Not at all. Not at all.
No. I don't know, because, you know, I've been doing it for long enough to understand that the editor wants your story to be as good as possible. So, you know, so when she said this, I thought, yeah, I haven't written it in a way that she understands what I meant was this. So that's so it is difficult though, because you're so used to having 100,000 words, 150,000 words, and sometimes in my case, to tell a story and to tease out the character and the relationships, and you have to do it in 2,500 words, or 2,800 in my case. So you have to be really ruthless, I suppose, about it. Yeah.
Thank you. And Molly Fitzgerald's asking, like, the stories sound incredible already. They are. And did any of you lovely ladies find writing the stories therapeutic, particularly in a lockdown? And I'll go to Daniellé for that.
Hi, yes, I found it incredibly therapeutic writing the row. I think that it was a moment where, you know, I lived by myself and I was away from my friends who are all in the chat. I love you girls. Shout out to PPE. Thank you so much. And, but I was away from my friends, and it was a way to be closer to them. And also be closer to the life that we had like last February, because like last February, like I was in LA with my girls, hey, and then we came back and they were like, stay in your house. And so climbing into this world was a moment. And also like being in therapy, shout out to therapy, can everyone please do the work? Like it's hard, but you need it. But doing therapy and then like having these characters, it was something to look forward to and to, I don't know, like come to every day. Because, you know, like I work full time as a development producer, and like all the writing I do is on the side of my full-time gig, because that's what pays the bills. Okay, guys, don't forget, like if you're writing, like it's okay to have a full-time job and like write on the side, like please pay your bills. All right, cool. Yes. For me, it was just something to come home to in my spirit, to like meet Edith and Mariah and to go with them on this journey. So yeah, it was absolutely therapeutic.
Brilliant, thank you. Adras Awusubanye says, what did writing about love teach or remind you about your personal feelings towards love? And I'll direct that to Sarah, please.
Interesting. I don't actually know. I think I went in it kind of thinking like, I mean, the character is like in her like mid to late 20s, and I kind of thought like, what would it be like to kind of start again in that age, kind of with everything, and that kind of, I don't know, I think it taught me about like the hope of love, like the fact that like a blossoming kind of relationship can kind of bring you hope and kind of bring you out of a dark time, just kind of like having a connection with another human being. I think that's kind of what it taught me, I think. But I did kind of write it like everyone else during the pandemic, so it was kind of like a dark time. So, yeah, I think that's what it taught me.
Yeah, there's like a really strange theme throughout this whole book with like loads of dead relatives, and you can really kind of like see the glooming pandemic that was over us when we were writing. But a lot of love does come out of that. Like, what was that line from WandaVision? It's like, what is grief if not love persevering or something? And I think that collection kind of embodies that sentiment.
Yeah, absolutely. Kuchenga, what was it like being a part of this collective of women? And did you know, actually, were you told who was involved? When were you told, before the story or after the story? Because I mean, if I'd known that all these people in the room, I would have been like, I can't write, I'm not writing a damn thing to be changed. But what did you know, and what's it like being a part of this group of ladies?
I think, you know, it was all rather piecemeal, to be honest. And like, I like being on social media, being like, oh my God, like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was fun. Like, like I remember like distinctly, when I'm hearing that the Dorothy was going to be a part, I was like, oh, excuse me, like, do you know what I mean? It's standard raised, do you know what I mean? I was like, you know, like when I saw Kelechi, I was like, oh my God, it's going to be jokes, like, do you know what I mean? So it was like, it was very much kind of like an Ocean's 13-8 kind of like, you know, kind of vibe that was
like
going
Avengers Assemble.
Yes, standards, literally. Yeah, for real. So yeah, Thanos vanquished. And yeah, in terms of like what it's mean, I think, yeah, like I said before, like this particular political moment, with like, you know, expanding gender expressions and, you know, LGBTQ joy and wonderfulness, and, you know, just like a strident, proud Black literary voice, and like the coagulation that's going on right now, like it's really felt like, I think like being an older millennial and stuff, like you're kind of like, you're always being told, oh, it was different in the 60s, it's different in the 80s, you lot don't know, do you know what I mean? And stuff like, I think because Toni Morrison's passing had such a massive impact on me, and like learning about her life, watching the documentary and stuff, and like hearing about the Black Book that got created in the 70s, and like how significant that was for like crystallizing that political time. But also, I think I've got it here, I was reading this Black women writers at work whilst I was writing this and stuff. So I was really conscious that I'm really not, of course I write for me, but I wanted to write a story that like Zaya Wade, like the daughter of Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union. I wanted to write a story for her to read at the appropriate age, you know, like in the future, and to be able to like look back on this like moment in time and say, oh my God, like someone was thinking about me. Because as Janet Mock said at the Essence Awards, like, you know, she really wants like the Black girls of the future to like know that they are worthy and that we thought about them, that we thought about them before they were even born and stuff. So yeah, I feel like there's something like futuristic and ancestral about this particular moment and writing with these women specifically.
Thank you so much. And it's
so important to me. Sorry to cut you off, Akua, but to have young girls and women of color, and I know women of color is like a difficult term, but it was important to me to have a collection that a number of different types of young women and people in general could turn to and think, I know I'll find something that represents me in here somewhere. Yeah, so that's just really meaningful to me and important.
Well, thank you. And it is that documentation of history, that this is a signpost and can refer to this and say, you know, this is what was happening at that time. And this is how women of color are feeling in that time. And thank you for that, everybody. Really, thank you for your contribution. So this is a question that's come up a few times and different people have said it. What is your most kind of rom-com-y, or not rom-com, romantic piece of media that is most iconic to you? Is, you know, I think I said it earlier, it's the thing of a moment, that moment when you're watching or reading or experiencing that moment when the love is realized, you know, it's Baby and Dirty Dancing, it's that moment in Love and Basketball, and I'll play you for your love and all that type of stuff. I'm going to go around the room so everyone can answer.
Yeah, just to flag, we've got 2 minutes left.
Okay, wow, so that's 1 second answers, please. Danielle, go.
I guess because we're all watching it, like I love that moment in Wonder Vision where Wonder and Vision, you know, share that moment, and like Varaidzo said, that, you know, like the what is grief if not love persevering, like it does something for me.
Kuchenga.
I need them dead. Like literally, I want sex and death, literally, boo. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I like the Anthony and Cleopatra model, boo. Give me some sand dunes. Do you know what I mean? As it goes, oh, the asp on the breast. But also, shout out to the English Patient. Literally, amazing soundtrack. And also, when he's carrying her at the cave, you're wearing the thimble. Of course, I'm wearing the thimble, silly. I've always loved you. Strings! Oh, boo! Got me. Fire, planes, death, literally. Coming. So yeah, watch the film.
Thank you. Amna.
Mine is Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, classic Bollywood, makes me cry every single time. Yeah, it's my fave. Love it.
Thank you, Dorothy.
I am cold and heartless. I don't have one.
My goodness. Okay. Well, your own, then we have to say.
Yeah, my own. Oh, actually, do you know, I like a bit in when Harry Met Sally, when she says to him, I'm not your consolation prize, basically. That always reminds me of that. Yeah, that.
Thank you. Rowan.
I don't know if this says terrible things about me, but I love any montage. I believe in love most when it's silent and I can't hear them and there's a soundtrack, and usually plants.
Thank you. I love a montage too. Sarah.
I hate myself for saying it, but I love Twilight. Like, I loved it as a teenager. I watched it 3 times in the cinema. I read it, had a soundtrack when I was reading it. It was like, and I actually wrote like a Muslim Iranian version of it when I was 16, like a full-length book, which is essentially Twilight and fantasy. I just like forbidden romance and kind of like, I mean, yeah, he's hot as well, so I mean that's...
Wait, Team Jacob or Team whatever his name is?
Edward.
No, Jacob. Anyway. Right, so.
I have so many and I'm going to try reel them off quickly. Okay, 10 things I hate about you. Heath Ledger, Julia Stiles having a paintball fight, amazing. books. Anna and the French Kiss is like a trilogy, fantastic romance. It's all about, it's YA romance, but like amazing characters, like by the book romance, incredible. The Lost Art of Keeping Secrets by Eva Rice, which is another great book. The love interest has like a pet loaf of bread, makes it work somehow, not really sure how. The Japanese film Your Name, which totally inspired my story, I can't even lie. The Lake House has nothing on that. It's a beautiful story with like a comet and tradition, and I think it's incredible. And then the OG one, Lenora Critchlow in Sugar Rush, a sexual awakening for a whole generation of people. Shout outs to her. Those are my 5.
Thank you, girl, for getting through them. And yes, thank you very much.
We're ready. Like,
yeah. And for you, Miss Lady, Sareeta Domingo, which is yours?
I'm legit struggling to like compile it in my head. What would I go for? I love Love Jones. That's one of my favorites. I mean, it's hella corny that he writes her the poem and stuff, but Love Jones. I love the film Last Night. It's random. It has the girl everyone hates, Keira Knightley, but the French guy in that's really, really hot. There's really, really hot lines in that. So that, and what else? I love When Harry Met Sally as well. Those will do.
Thank you, and thank you, and thank you, and thank you, thank you. So everybody, unfortunately, the evening's got to come to an end. Thank you so much to everyone for attending the launch of Who's Loving You, presented by Everyman Cinemas and Dark Matter. Thanks again to Pages of Hackney, our bookseller partner, and Trapeze Books and Orion Books. Special thanks again to Everyman Cinemas for the platform. A reminder that Who's Loving You, Love Stories by Women of Colour is out today. Pick it up from all good retailers and online. And there's also an audiobook version available. I think I read someone ask that. So there is an audiobook version. And to all of you wonderful women who contributed to this wonderful, lovely, beautiful book, thank you so much. Wonderful. And I'm Akua Gyamfi.
Thank you, Akua, as well, for your amazing hosting.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.